right, welcome everyone to another installment of The Way It Is. I'm your host, Luca with Remax Service First Realty. And this particular podcast may be timely, maybe not so timely, but I have the fortunate pleasure of having I'll call a friend, former colleague in real estate, Keith Bilow. And Keith has graciously volunteered his time and his stories, I think, today, because Keith is a gay man in Kingston. And given that we've come almost to the end of Pride Month on the planet, I guess, I thought it would be fitting because this podcast drops on Thursday, the 1st, but it'll be, I guess, a recap or a conversation about being a gay man or in Kingston and what that is, I guess, some maybe real life accounts of what that's like. So welcome, Keith.
Thank you. Thanks, Luca. It's good to be here.
All right, good. Well, and just briefly, for those of you that may or may not know Keith, he's worn a lot of hats and done a lot of things over his life so far. He started working for the federal government. He was an entrepreneur. And then we crossed paths when he was in real estate way back. I think you started with Snyder, wasn't it? Way back in the day, or no?
I started with Snyder, yes.
So that is a long time ago. There's have to be long time agents listening to this if they remember that. So, and then after that career, you did some work at a church. You've had some long time work in flower shops for various.
I had 20 years in flower shops. Yeah.
Yeah, starting with Trugs. I think that was where you started first, wasn't it?
Yes.
And then most recently at Avenue Florist was the last thing. Yeah. So, needless to say, you've done a lot of things and seen a lot of things, both from an entrepreneurial point of view, a business point of view, and a community point of view. So, the first question I'd written down is, what's it like to be a gay man in Kingston?
Well, actually, it's getting better all the time. It's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good in Kingston because the local bars and restaurants and all that are very supportive, and the local community is very supportive. So I see people out holding hands all the time, and nobody bothers them. Nobody even looks anymore. So, and I know people. I've sent people out on dates in places that you would think they shouldn't be going to, and I've been to events in places that would never have had them before, and they welcome us with open arms. So it's pretty good, really.
And you're quite active in the community. You do you touched on it there. You do a lot of organizing for events and things like that. Why don't you describe what that's like or what that's about?
Well, I do an event right now that that is every week. I do an event called Beers for Queers, and it happens every week at a local bar. And it's just a bar night. And sometimes we have performers. Sometimes we have karaoke, but it's a safe place to meet and mingle, and and just bring friends or meet up with people. We always make sure that somebody who comes alone is introduced to people, and aside from that, I have arranged dances and drag shows and boat cruises, and been involved with Kingston Pride, including organizing the parade. So there's all that going on. There's also like clubs with St. Lawrence College, with Queens. Queens has a whole bunch of clubs over at RMC and on the base. So that there's all that going on all the time.
Well, so I got a lot to dive into with a couple of points that you just made. So the first and foremost, though, because when I started this podcast, we were in the throes of the pandemic, and of course, everything has been pandemic related, obviously in one form or another. So
Mhm.
given these weekly events that you've had, they've obviously had to go virtual, or some kind of what's happened in that regard then?
Well, when the weekly event just stopped, but only we do it only on patios now. It's only on a patio outdoors. But we're following the pandemic rules. And when we could have when inside 50 people, we were doing drag shows inside or on a patio with 50 people. But we were doing all the regulations. The performer had to be behind plexiglass, um, far away, far away. There was everybody, just like anytime you go to a restaurant, you have to stay seated and had to put a mask on if you moved around. And we did all that. And I'm a dad. I made them sit where they're supposed to sit and stay there. And, and it kept, but especially with the drag shows, and where we could have, at one point, we could have up to 8 at a table at one point. We'll get back there. We're only at 4 a table outside now, but we sold tickets for the entire table, so people stayed in their bubble. If we
Right.
sell only 4 for that table, only 4 people sat at that table, and the same people. They all knew each other,
Okay.
so it kept it all in bubbles.
Well, that's great. That's great.
So,
So
hmm?
I'm just going to go all over the place because there's a lot. I mean, obviously,
Okay,
there's a
go,
lot of
go,
questions,
go.
but um, obviously, you were married, you had
Yes,
children,
yes.
and then things changed. Or maybe they didn't change. Maybe you just had an awakening. Or if it's not too personal, why don't you tell us? Because I dare say, and this certainly is not intended to be confrontational or to anyone
Hmm.
listening or anyone in the community, but I dare say there's people that would have maybe still are in a situation like you were back then, that married with children, but still were a gay man, and just maybe shed some insight into that and what that's like.
Well, in my own case, uh, I was married for a number of years and had 2 children. Now I was in love with my wife when I married her, but I had had experience before we ever met, and I realized I could not live being married to a woman when the desire and was really to that, and the natural inclination was to be with a man. And so I explained that to her, and and we split. It ended up in the end. I left the house, and then um, we had joint custody, and then we got to. It was only a couple of years later where, with the 2 children, one came with me and one stayed with her. But the children, we had a 50-50 with them. I had the other one out of 30 days. I had her one, see, what would be that, 1/3 of the time. But the kids saw each other. I took them every Thursday. He lived with me full time, and she came to me every Thursday and every other weekend. So the children were actually together from Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday every week,
Okay,
4 days
so
a week. The other 3 days they were apart.
right, and you have a boy and a girl, right?
Boy and a girl,
And how old were you? How old were they when this happened?
and they were Deepers. He was 8, and she was 11.
So as far as understanding or the conversation, how did that go over? Or how was that
Well,
interpreted?
when I first left, it was just I was just leaving. and it was the family secret, but I was forced to tell. And then I told them. And with children, as long as you're upfront with them and telling them, and and remember, I remember my daughter got the concept earlier than my son, but I told him, and when I said I only like to date men, he goes, "Oh, that's just weird. But where are we going now? That can we go and play ball now?" Because he didn't care,
Hmm.
and I raised him. He lived with me, and he's seen all the ins and outs, and he's quite adjusted to it all. And I mean, I saw him yesterday and his new child yesterday. So
Yeah, I was going to say, you're a grandfather now, right? Congratulations. So,
yes, I have three crazy little kids. Yes.
okay, well, good. Well, so I guess that must have taken a lot of courage. And was there any support that you had at all? Anybody was there a community even then that you could reach out to, or anyone that you could have those conversations with? Because I would
I
have
did reach
suspected
out
that
to
was.
I did reach out to a community, to the community, and then I actually started. I had for a brief time had a group that was of gay fathers that met, and we met for a short time. But family and friends, I did have a tough time with work wise and outside of my own family bubble. And I did lose family and friends. I did lose that. I did lose employment. I did, and chances uh, to earn money. But that all turned about. There was an article. The big turnaround came. I was actually part of my coming out and telling people. I had also been involved with a group called the Men's Network in Kingston, which was just men who got together once a month and talked. And but they had a conference here, and I came out and met some male victims of sexual assault, who I am one of those. I am a survivor of male sexual assault. And there was an article written on me in the Globe and Mail on that. I had agreed to, I'd been approached by a reporter in Kingston who was here for a while, and the Big Standard would not do it anonymously. But when he went to Toronto, he asked the Globe and Mail, because he was working for them, and asked if he could write this story. So they did. And it was in the Saturday section of the Globe and Mail. They took pictures of me at my favorite spot in town, which is the Newlands Pavilion at the end of Berry Street.
Yeah.
And then they wanted pictures that were of me at the age of the child. I agreed to all that, and I timed it to come out when my parents were in Florida. So all the hoopla would be over. So that came out, and so there's a number of people who don't get the Globe and Mail, but the moment it was out, 3 or 4 people dropped it off to the minister at my church.
Mm.
And then
So what year would this be, Keith?
oh jeepers, now you're really taxing my memory here. I would be 40, so that would be 5 years ago,
Yeah.
25, 26 years ago.
And which doesn't seem like a long time, but I guess in context, it probably is a long time, right? Given how the
It
tides
is.
have changed.
But consequently to that article, there was another one done on forgiveness that Jack Chang, who's no Judge Jack Chang, that came out 2 years later. And there was a Saturday paper with the Whig Standard, and when they came out, that created a big stir in town because there was a picture, was used just big. And I told my parents, I told everybody, all my family and stuff. Now that caused a big stir in town. But actually, it's funny. Through that 2 weeks after that, I got more hugs from people I didn't know and everywhere. And it was a big step forward, not just for me, but for the gay community. It had, okay, somebody's actually putting a face to this that we know, because I have lots of family here and they're well known. And so there was all that, and it made a big difference for other people. So I know people who came out later just that if you could do it, I could do it.
So, I mean, how was your parents' response? Because, I mean, not to put you on the spot, and if you're embarrassed to say, not that I want to embarrass you.
I'm not embarrassed to say.
How old are you now? How old are you now?
Oh, God, that's cheating. I am 68.
So no, my point being, I didn't mean to just because I wanted to tell everyone your age, but my point being, your parents had you and your family, like your siblings, at an age and an era that what we're discussing today would never have been discussed, only in secret, only in hiding. Right. And so, what was their initial reaction, and how have they moved on from it then, I guess?
And of course, I was raised to do what you did at the time. You found a girl, you got married, settled down. Now, with my parents, two things happened separately. When I told my father, which was at 7 or 7:30 in the morning, dressed to go to work to sell real estate, suited up and all, and I at the breakfast table telling him, I told him that the marriage was over, and he said, "So what can I do?" And I said, "Well, I need somewhere to stay." And he said, "Well, that's okay." And I said, "No, you need to know why." And he said, "Why?" And he goes, "Well," I said, "What's the worst thing that you could think about me?" And he goes, "That you're queer." And I said, "Well, that would be it." and God bless him. He turned away for a moment, and then he turned back and he said, "What can I do?"
Wow. Well, that's inspiring.
And then he told my mother, and she wanted to have some ray of hope that I was just bisexual, but
I don't want to sound callous, but they probably would have understood more had you said you'd had an affair, right? I mean, that would have gone over, and then.
Oh yeah, that would have been easier.
Not that they would have condoned it, but they would have just understood it and gotten on with it.
But my mother had high hopes, and so she actually asked me to go see a psychologist that I went to at $75 an hour. And he told me that the three things, I did a mountain of testing. And it came back, I'm mildly depressed because of loss of a love. And I thought, well, there's a revelation. I'm getting a divorce. And that on the scale of sexuality, which there is a scale of sexuality, I was high up on the gay end. And on masculinity, I was high up on the end there. So it's like, well, I know exactly, so that's what happened with my parents. Some of my extended family had a big problem with it. To them in the very end, they had to eat their words. And I told them concerning being gay and the articles about the sexual abuse that had nothing to do with them. I said, it has nothing to do with you. has everything to do with me, has nothing to do with you, and move on with it. If you don't like it,
Mhm.
don't read the paper.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Well, I still think that was super courageous. And, so fast forward now, we're in a day and age where, like you said, you'd have to have lived under a rock to have the mindset of not being, understanding or accepting of
Mhm.
um, being gay or what have you. And obviously, we have a whole month dedicated to the celebration of that.
Right.
In Kingston, what's the population like? I guess, is it a large
Well,
community? Is it?
the community is just like every other place. It's 10%.
Yeah,
10% of doctors, lawyers, indigenous,
yeah,
that you know, it's 10% of all the people you know. Um, it's uh, it just is. Um, some are more flamboyant, yes, but most of them are not.
right.
And I've been surprised a few times when I found out somebody was, or they've approached me, and it's like, oh, well, really.
Okay.
Um, but there's a lot. There's that surprise, but there's still a number that hide for a long time because they're afraid of losing family and friends, and sometimes they do. You know, so
Is there any kind of organization to it, like some kind of bureaucracy or some kind of chapter or anything like that for
no, no,
no.
no, no. There's that's where it's all peer support.
Right.
You get that, and with the group, that because there are events, there are events at Queens just for Queens. There are events on the base and at RMC and in the community. There's places to go. You can find us, and there's a number of groups online that you can find, and they will. There's youth groups, up to age 25, and the rest, after 25. I mean, you should be out on your own, anyways. And
Mm.
there's lots of places to actually meet. And in Kingston, because the bars and restaurants are so accepting, like I've been on a date in all the bars downtown, you know,
Mhm.
and not had a problem,
Yeah.
and that when Pride comes along, um, there's a lot of people who come out during that time. Uh, Now we can talk about actually the influx because Kingston is a town that has a lot of in and inflow and outflow from
Yeah, a lot of transient community. Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
100%.
that. And we get with the base, they are extremely accepting, and they do not uh, put up with any prejudice at all
Hmm.
about this. They are so good about it. They raise all the flags and all that sort of stuff. The Queens community, uh, they come. It's funny. They're a little harder to work with in one way. They stick to themselves,
Hmm.
but prejudice, like we get a kid from northern Ontario who comes here to Queens and then and is suddenly confronted with um, uh, gay people that he's never experienced, but brings those prejudices with him. So there's that prejudice that comes in, but also there's the gay boy who is from Northern Ontario comes in and goes, okay, I'm free, I'm away from them, I'm going to live my life the way I want,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it's the whole freedom. So it makes it. There's a lot of them that get together there, and as schoolmates and move on in their life together. So and the same with the army base.
So I'm not sure how much news you follow or snippets of news, but recently there was the story of that NFL lineman who came out.
Yes.
And so, if your percentages are accurate, which I don't doubt, 10% of the NFL players are probably gay. And so, obviously they're playing in, they're hiding that or just don't, aren't in a situation where they feel the ability to state their true sexuality. But what's your, I mean, how, when you hear news stories like that, how does that make you feel? What?
Well, it's good, especially for the boys and the girls who are playing those sports. And if they do that, in rugby in Britain, the top player, that a real big manly man, and he was married, had 2 kids, and he came out publicly a few years ago. But it gives those kids, those people who were in those, okay, he did it, nothing happened to him, or good things happened to him, and he finally found a partner, then it's very good. It gives all those, well, I can be like that. But it's like in everything. I mean, even going over to politics for a moment. I mean, we have Pete Buttigieg in the U.S., who's now the director of roads and whatever.
Yeah, I forget his portfolio, but yeah, transportation. You want to say maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, he was running for president, for goodness sakes. And it's not like we don't have politicians here that are gay and out. We have some in Parliament now. We had we had gay members of Parliament from Kingston and in the Ontario legislature. So I mean that they're there.
Well, and I guess the thought that's been crossing my mind now as we're having this conversation now too is, and it relates back to another news story, because they just changed the legislation, or we're getting rid of the legislation, actually, I should say, or banning it. Is this concept and the mindset that being gay or queer or is a condition vis-a-vis, so as opposed to solely an expression of your sexuality, right? Because they were doing those tests, right? And that's the legislation that was just abolished or stopped. You know what? I apologize. I probably should have done more research on that.
No, the conversion therapy.
Conversion therapy. Thank you. Yeah.
Conversion therapy, where the entire Conservative Party voted against it. Conversion therapy, I mean, is, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. I know some people, in fact, the one that went through to get that passed in Kingston, and came out about it. I know him, but how can I explain it? You wouldn't try to force your child to do anything that is harmful to their mental ability, and that is what it is. And you can't ask, oh, when did you know you were gay? Because the answer to that is, when did you know you were straight?
Yeah, fair enough.
Because if that you always knew one way, that I've known for my entire life at one point that that you're different. But you always know you are different.
Yeah.
But the conversion therapy, and why people think that they should harm children, and it is a definite harm to children.
Yeah.
You wouldn't send your child to an insane asylum. So that's exactly that. But I think it's okay. Let's beat the sin out of him. So no.
Well, I mean, and the backwash or the backlash of sending a bunch of children to schools to try to get the Indian out of them and stuff. As it was said, right?
It's along this. I can't say it's not as horrendous as those poor indigenous children suffered, but it is suffering to those kids who go there, and it is just wrong. And the epitome to me of bad parenting is rejecting your child for being who they are.
Yeah.
That is up to including them, throwing them out of the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
have to agree with you there.
I'll relate a small story on that. There was a boy that came to that in Belleville that I met, David, and good boy, going to school, 3 scores a day, only child. Dad found out and threw him out onto the street, and he actually came to Kingston. One
How
man
old would he have been? Sorry, how old would he have been?
Oh, he was 16.
Hmm.
And he came to Kingston. One man that I knew took advantage of him, but that boy managed to get on student welfare, finish high school, and got accepted to college in Ottawa, and has made a great life for himself. That he went on in spite of what his father had done to him, which was, okay, I'm loving you today, but tomorrow, but now tonight I can't love you anymore because of that. You want to love another man.
Yeah. And not to dominate the conversation, of course. I mean, gay. I mean, obviously, women experience that. Lesbian women, and now the whole realm of transgendered and non-binary. It just like you said. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in the world, and everybody experiences things a lot differently, and life is hard sometimes, and so it's just a function of people trying to find their way, right, and trying to find their identities. So yeah,
if you can't be out, what can I do to help that person, or be kind to that person, don't do it. Don't do the exact opposite. Don't be mean to them. Don't make life worse for them, And I have a gay nephew who married his partner in Winnipeg. Good Lord, he got married in the winter in Winnipeg.
I was best man at Liam's wedding in Winnipeg, for goodness sakes, if you remember Liam.
I remember Liam. Well, my nephew married in February, and I said, you're going to make your uncle come to Winnipeg in the wintertime. And he got married during the pandemic. So thank God I didn't have to go. And I have a niece who is becoming a nephew, is transitioning. And I've met more than I thought. And I'll admit, I have a hard time with the whole concept. I really, because I'm happy being male, and I have a hard time with the concept. But I'm telling you, I've met some that they've just blossomed afterwards.
Right.
I have a guy who is transitioned from a girl to a guy who I have a euchre game at my house on weekly. Well, not now. And he came to it was all gay men, and he came to play, and we got talking about women and girls, and we were in that, and he looked and he goes, "Is this how you talk about girls all the time?" I went, "Yes, we do." And he went, I said, "Welcome to the club," and he just like, really, and he was quite shocked that, yeah, this is how we talk, so get used to it. it was pretty funny. But then, go ahead.
No. Just so this month has come and gone, and the second year without a Pride parade, or it was done virtually, right? So hopefully the goal is next year because it's been 2 years, right, since the last Pride parade in Kingston and in Toronto, obviously, which is the main one, of course, or the one that's the most attended, I suppose. But do you take part in that organizing of any of that, Keith, or?
Well, Friday in Kingston, they're going to do something on the 25th of September here, though I don't know exactly all of that. I have been involved in the Pride, organizing Pride for a number of years. I'm not on the Pride committee right now, but I know all about it, and I check all the time because I do events all the time. But it will be on next year. There's no doubt.
Okay.
And it will be bigger and better than ever, I'm sure. And when we're that it's more fun. It's more fun than the Canada Day parade. So, but it's. I'm sure, like next year, it will be gangbusters. There will be something virtual. Come on, in September, and the moment we can have something else, and with events, dances, and all that sort of stuff, they will happen.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I think we're all hoping for that time, right? So now it's just a function of vaccinations catching up with everyone. I got my second one this morning, so fingers crossed I'm not flat on my back tomorrow. Sick as a dog, because I've heard I got the Pfizer both times, but I've heard conflicting stories. Some people don't feel anything. Some people are sick for a day. Some people are sick for a couple of days. So
I have both of mine, and they're both Pfizer. And somebody asked about the second one, and I can't really tell because I had a tremendously large meal that same day as the second one, and I had a bit of an upset stomach, and I don't know whether it was the meal or the shot, but I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine.
Good. Well, listen, I want to say again, thank you so much for taking the time, for sharing your insights. I thought, we have a good relationship and history together, working together, and being friends. I'm thankful to call you a friend. And so I appreciate you taking the time and helping to shed some light and insight to the listeners about what it's like to be a gay man in Kingston. So, yeah.
Thanks for the opportunity to do this, Luca.
All right. Well, listen, look forward to when we can do it on a patio, but certainly we'll have to do that sometime and celebrate for sure.
I'm always up for beer.
All right. Sounds great, Keith. Well, listen, you take care, and I'm sure we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.